Greetings, my young Jedi. I would like to welcome you to the first annual Halloween Spectacular, a galaxy of horror. Hello there, and welcome to the Force of Others. I'm Matt Boitner.
I'm Zachary Owen Turner.
And we'd like to welcome you to the Halloween Spectacular, our first ever Galaxy of Horror Halloween special thing. In future years, this might be all of our spooky season stuff, and not breaking it up into spiders and snakes, but this is our first time ever. Also, you can't really tell. It looks like I'm in a bathrobe, but I do in fact have a Jedi robe on.
Yeah.
There you go. Now you can see it. Look at it, and it's blue glory.
I'm wearing my Sith robes.
There you go. For those of you that can't see at home, and all you're just hearing is on the podcast, we are in fact holding lightsaber toys and dressed up like Force users, like little kids. Because while there is no trick-or-treating in my future, as a 30-something-year-old man, I can still put a costume on. But yeah, man, Zach, how was your, or just audience at home, we got a special one for you today.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about some of our favorite scary Star Wars things, or creepy, kooky Star Wars things. and then also, we're going to, maybe indulge ourselves a little bit, but show some of our acting chops with a reading of The Raven, Star Wars style, a Star Wars take on the Edgar Allan Poe classic. And then also we're going to tell some fan fiction kind of campfire scary stories. Mm-hmm. I've got one that's a little maybe too existentially frightening, and Zach made a really, really cool, he made a cool villain.
Thanks. I was, so I was watching, this will go into a scary thing that I did this week.
Cool.
I was watching a new movie, not necessarily super new. It came out last year. It was called The Last Voyage of the Demeter. And
I wanted to see that.
Yeah, it's great. It's not too scary, which for me, I'm a little baby when it comes to scary movies. So I was very excited for it because it's Dracula, and I really like Dracula. And it is only that one chapter in the Dracula book about Dracula and his 50 crates of earth on the ship to England. That's it. It's the story of the ship traveling. And it's really cool. It has some really great actors in it. It has David Dastmalchian, who is the character actor of the century. It has the guy who played the Onion Knight in Game of Thrones. Which I should pull up the cast list for this if I'm going to.
Say my nerd cred is leaving. I have no idea what an Onion Knight is.
The Onion Knight. The cast is it has Liam Cunningham, David Dastmalchian, Corey Hawkins is absolutely amazing in it. Aisling Francois, and the guy who plays Count Dracula is Javier Botet, and he is like so creepy and gangly and like he's spooky, but it was not too scary. My pitch for it, which I saw online, and my pitch to you, Matt, is it's the movie Alien but on a ship.
Cool.
Yeah, and Dracula is the alien instead.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Yeah,
that sounds fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Zach, I also don't really like being scared. I'm, in fact, a little baby boy when it comes to being frightened. But while we, with Zach, let's talk about our weeks before we get into more of our Halloween spectacular. So how outside of watching a not scary Dracula movie, how was your week? And how did Star Wars find you this week, if it did?
Yeah, my week was great. Went to we'll talk about Halloween plans later, but went to a Halloween party last night. Did that. On Friday, I went to a wedding of two of my friends, which was really, really beautiful. Shout out to Aaron and Santiago. You guys were amazing. It was in Central Park at the Bryant Park, at the Central Park Bethesda fountain, and we all showed up early to like pay off vendors to like move over a little bit, and they had a permit and everything. But like, you know, there's so many people there, and we guys, basically the guests were like like a barrier for people to not ruin this wedding. But it was really, really beautiful, and they both gave really wonderful speeches. Very, just a wonderful, wonderful day, especially with the fall colors and all that. So that was kind of my week. How Star Wars found me. Friday mornings have become my Star Wars Outlaw mornings.
Yeah.
So, played a little bit more Outlaws. I'm really enjoying it. I haven't moved the story too far because I'm one of those video game players where it's like, okay, I have to get every little tiny little trinket along the way. So it's like, okay, cool, I'm not going to leave this planet until I have done everything on this planet. But I'm getting there's a new syndicate, the Ashiga clan, which are those like weird like insectoid, humanoid people on Kijimi. And I'm almost all the way up to excellent with them, which means you get a special outfit. It's so funny because like there's like different levels of like getting good with the syndicate, and then you get like a gun, then you get a trinket and some supplies, and then you get an outfit. But
so when you get up to excellent with the Ashiga clan, does that mess you up with Crimson Dawn?
Yes, because Crimson Dawn and Ashiga are currently battling each other. So I keep on like doing quests for the Ashiga, and then my reputation with Crimson Dawn keeps on going down. So then I have to go and like, do another job with them so that it goes back up to good. Because you really want to stay with good with all of them, otherwise they like won't let you into their compounds. If you are in like poor or bad, if you're in bad, they'll physically attack you if they see you. Because it means that you've been like really messing them up. So.
Cool.
Yeah. What about you? How's your Star Wars week? How's your week?
My real life week was very, very, very busy. I had another busy work week, but that's okay. But for the first time in a while, just to dive into Star Wars actually found me, not by me choosing to participate in it, by reading an audiobook or playing the role-playing game or whatever. It just straight up kind of a Star Wars thing appeared. I was watching a YouTube show called Last Meals, which is it's hosted by the chef of oh my gosh, I'm forgetting everything. Good Mythical Morning, but those Rhett and Link.
Oh yeah.
There you go. It's hosted by their chef, and basically he just has on other celebrities or whatever and cooks them what they would want for their last meal. So it's usually a smorgasbord, and they talk about death and everything else and how do you feel about it, blah blah blah. How does it scare you? Whatever. How have you made peace with it, and so on and so forth. Yada yada yada. Yeah. And this episode was with Terry Crews.
Oh,
who's
cool.
One of the most positive, just fun, and it was a fantastic interview. And he talked. One of the things he said that he grew up so poor, so just without really anything. He couldn't go see movies, but he would hear his friends talk about them, and so he would sit in his room and he would draw what he thought the movie was. Right.
He's an excellent artist too.
Yeah. He's man, true Renaissance man.
Oh, for sure.
Terry Crews, but. Out of nowhere, the interviewer was like, well, so blah, 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 you had this and this and this. What taught you morality? And my right hand to God, he said, Star Wars, which was the first movie he saw in the theater and his first exposure as a kid to it helped him get over his fear of death. That we, just to see Obi-Wan come back and Yoda come back and Anakin come back, and just that even as a little kid, he said it sounds so silly, but that you go on, that you are able to still impact the people that are still alive, but it's not just lights out and done, but also just, that it was so simplistic but also complex in its morality. Anyway, I decided out of nowhere, there's a what taught you morality, Star Wars, and I was like, I did the Leo DiCaprio snap point meme. I was like, no way! And I instantly got out my show notes for the show, and I was like, it actually found me. I didn't find it. and it was Halloween themed, so it was serendipity. It was meant to be. It was the will of the Force. But yeah.
Or the force of others.
There you go. Well done. So that was how Star Wars found me this week, and for my work week, it was boring and busy. So there's not much to talk about there.
Nice.
But so to begin to dive into our Halloween spectacular, Zach, do you have any Halloween plans for this year? At the time of recording, this is Monday the 28th. Halloween is on like a Thursday, so y'all will be listening on Friday at the soonest, the day after Halloween.
Friday the 1st, which is a great time to listen to a Halloween episode.
Yeah.
So last night, my partner and I, we went to a friend of ours, and they did a murder mystery party.
That's cool.
Which was really fun. Sometimes, murder mysteries, they will, you get a script and you get to read it. This one wasn't that, which was really kind of fun, but every person got a character, and they got, I think it was 4 people that they had relationships with at the party. And so you knew that going in, and then you got an envelope with objectives to do for that first round. And so you'd go up to a person and be like, I heard that you have beef with so-and-so, and they were like, yeah, they screwed me over in this. And then second round, at the end of the first round, one of the people actually playing died. Your character dies, and they kill someone, and then that person becomes the detective for the round 2. So they their character dies, and then they get a mustache and glasses and a hat, right? And then they become the detective, and they have all the evidence. So they're still playing, even though their character died, So it was really fun, inventive way to do it. And then the second round, you were all trying to figure out who the murder was, and then the third round, at the end of the second round, you all voted, and then it was revealed who the murderer was, which was really fun. It was funny because they were like, yeah, this is supposed to be a New Year's Eve one, but it's Halloween, so we're going to change the date to Halloween, which was really, really kind of fun. But I think it was called Y2K New Year Murder Mystery if you want to run it yourself at home, dear listener. But it was really, really fun. So,
cool.
But I went as a vampire, but my character was a rock star, so, it worked out. Because vampires and 70s rock stars are pretty similar, so.
Right.
What about you? Any Halloween plans?
Well, I hinted at it earlier. I'm a wimpy little baby when it comes to scary things, so I don't really have a lot of plans. But, however, for the captain of the ship that is my life, my lovely wife, Jenny, she loves Halloween. It's her favorite holiday. So I am, for all of the month of October, she gets to pick every movie we watch. That's something that we do a lot together when we're home. We're both teachers, so we get very, very overstimulated, and we like to pretty much come home and sit. And movies will be on. So she picks every movie we watch, and it is always a terrifying thing that I regret watching halfway through. And so she's probably going to spam me with some of my least favorite and most scary movies on a Halloween. And
Nice.
She'll laugh at me a lot as I freak out. But those are my plans. Speaking of scary movies, so outside of Voyage of the Meteor, do you have another scary movie that's at the top of your list?
I do, but real quick, I forgot Star Wars found me this week as well.
Oh, cool.
So I got a message from a friend of mine, and she was like, hey, my son really wanted to dress up as something specific this year, but we couldn't get him to be motivated, or I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was shy, right, to dress up. And she's like, well, Mr. Zach, he dresses up. And so she sent me a photo of him in Jedi robes, and I was like, made my heart cry, because I was like,
awesome.
I helped a kid dress up as Star Wars.
Well, that reminds me, I actually have, so Halloween's never been big for me, but I have 2 stories that stick out as I'll say it, major costume fails for a Halloween as a youth. I make fun of my family a lot on this show. I love them. Mom, I love you. I'm going to make fun of you now. So,
Didn't your mom make all of your costumes?
She made at least 2, but that's what this story is. So, it was just that it was everything. So, in the interest of being frugal, my mom would be like, well, why would I spend, however much money back in the 90s to get you this movie-accurate costume when I could just make it? She can sew, she can do all the stuff, so she would get all those patterns, and she would just make them herself. But I remember when I was 8 or so, maybe younger. Hook had come out with Robin Williams, and Peter Pan was like my guy at that point, and so I wanted to be Peter Pan for Halloween. And so Mom got the tights and made basically what kind of looked like his Peter Pan costume and Hook, where there's the leaves on it and everything, but it's just like the green jumpsuit and the tights and like the boots. But I didn't want to wear the Peter Pan hat from the cartoon because he didn't wear one in the movie.
In Hook, yeah.
In a Hook, yeah. So all I really remember was the first house that we went to. And it was very much the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I got a this, I got a this, I got a rock. The lady opened up the door, and it was me and several other young people, and she goes, oh, you're this, that looks great. Oh, you're this, that looks great. And she looks at me and goes, are you the Jolly Green Giant? And I was like, no, I'm Peter Pan. And I just turned around and looked at Mom, and I was like, and then
to be fair, Robin Williams and Hook and Jolly Green Giant, very similar costumes.
Yeah, I suppose. If you have no idea is the Jolly Green Giant still a thing?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
He was a mascot for frozen vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but the other one, I got to do have another one because it was almost the exact same thing. And with hindsight, I can go, wow, that happened twice. So flash forward to 1999. Star Wars Episode 1 had just come out, and this is when I was the age where you can wear your Halloween costume to school. Cool. Naturally, my Star Wars fever is back. Not that it was ever gone, but as a 10-year-old, I'm going nuts. I'm going to be a Jedi at school. So my mom sews one up, stains it with tea leaves, right, to get that brown color, a tunic, and sends me to school. And the first thing my teacher said, my 5th grade homeroom teacher, was, are you Moses? And I was like, okay, no, I'm a Jedi.
Again, to be fair, very similar iconography.
But what was funny is her son, my homeroom teacher was Miss Thomas. Her son was Nick Thomas, who is a good buddy of mine to this day. He got a the movie quality Jedi costume, and everybody knew who he was. And so I was just standing there like, it's not fair. It's not fair. I'm not Moses, I'm a Jedi, just like your son before me. Anyway, so there's some of my whiny, more about a funny Halloween stories. Do you have any funny Halloween stories from trick-or-treating or anything like that when you were a kid?
Just like one of my first memories of being a trick-or-treater is me I had 2 costumes in a row, and the first one I remember is Darth Maul, and the second one I remember is Darth Vader, and I had the double lightsaber, and I gotta tell you, I was the coolest kid around because I had the double lightsaber.
I remember that same Halloween, 99, what it wasn't so much trick-or-treating that evening. It was walking around and lightsaber dueling people.
Yeah.
It was like the thing where you'd see someone else with a lightsaber and you'd both light up and just run at each other and and duel and stuff.
Good times.
And it was, well, that was when we'd seen what a lightsaber duel could be for the first time. But okay, to transition into, oh wait, no, I'm wrong. Scary movies.
Yeah.
Are there any scary movies that are at the top of the list? Either they freak you out or you enjoy them or what have you?
I'm a baby when it comes to horror movies, but I love thrillers. I don't know what it is. It's something about the jump scares. Can't do it. I'm a little baby when it comes to it. But I love thrillers. So I love like Shutter Island. I love The Shining. The Shining is not scary to me. It's like a psychological let's analyze the downfall of this man. So I like thrillers. I love Dr. Sleep, which is kind of in between, which is the sequel to The Shining. Shout out to Ewan McGregor because he's great in everything. But those are the top ones that come off the top of my head. I hate like Sinister or Insidious Chapter whatever. I hate those movies. I can't do it. I hate them.
It's so funny because I literally was going scary movies that are at the top of my list that are so well made and they freak me out more than anything else.
They're well made. They just I can't do them.
But literally, I was gonna say Sinister and Insidious. Like, wait, I'm wrong. Scratch that, reverse it. Not Insidious. That's a scary movie with a Darth Maul as the villain, straight up.
Yeah,
the dude looks like Darth Maul. But I was gonna say Sinister. Whoa, freak me out.
That's the Ethan Hawke one, right?
That's the Ethan Hawke one.
Yeah,
and then
that one's scary.
Oh my gosh, The Conjuring.
Mm.
I have never cussed that much at a movie. I'm pretty sure there's a recording somewhere. But also, on a bet a couple years ago, I had to watch Arachnophobia.
Oh, no.
Yes,
I won't even watch that one. Anaconda, I also scarred me as a child.
We made a commentary track, and it's me just cussing at the screen for an hour and a half. And at one point, I remember Jenny was like, well, it's called Arachnophobia, Matt. And I was like, well, it should be called Joy. But so, okay, to finally transition into Star Wars, Zach, where would you go trick-or-treating in the Star Wars galaxy?
I feel like that you gotta go someplace that's gonna have good candy, right? So it takes out so many of the planets, right? You're not gonna go trick-or-treating on Hoth. You're not gonna go on Endor, Dagobah, like none of those. Not doing it. So it's either gotta be Coruscant, but I feel like that's too dangerous to go to go trick-or-treating in. You know, it's too populous. It's too big of a city. So I feel like then you got to go somewhere smaller. So I feel like either that one, I think it's called Pisana, which is in Rise of Skywalker, the one that they're doing the big festival. I feel like that place would be a great place to go trick or treating. You know,
yeah, that's super cool.
They're already celebrating all the time. You know, at least in that festival, I feel like they would be like, yeah, here's like some cool candy that you've never seen. Or I feel like it would be one of the like smaller, you know, like. I could even do Endor. I feel like the Ewoks would get into it. But yeah, those are. I feel like it has to be one of the lesser ones. Yavin 4, after they like make that into a full city, you know, I feel like that one would be very cozy. Or honestly, we don't know what planet it is, but whatever that cul-de-sac is in Skeleton Crew. That's where you want to trick or treat. You're actually gonna get candy.
I was gonna say it's almost like they might even literally have Earth candy. We'll see. Maybe there will be a trick or treating sequence, Stranger Things style. We'll know on Skeleton Crew soon enough. Yeah. But so my choice, I think you gotta go Naboo, man.
Oh,
you gotta go Theed. Like it's because it's this like Renaissance-y artist collective. They'd have these really weird like artisanal candies. And I feel like they would go really nuts with their Halloween festival if that was a thing. I was gonna say Coruscant just to kind of poke the bear, but yeah, I feel like if you'd end up trick or treating on the wrong level of the city, you'd get be bad.
Although I bet the Jedi Temple would throw just a badass festival.
Or would they be the type that it's like, well, we don't give out candy, but we will give out little Jedi booklets and we'll meditate for you. Have you heard the word of the Force? Okay, sorry. They'll give out little Star Wars rice cakes. But okay, let's begin the Galaxy of Horror Volume 1. So scariest Star Wars moments of all time.
Yeah.
I have 5 and Zach has 5, or at least, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be the ones that scared you the most, but your favorites or whatever. I have 2 honorable mentions. I'll save them before my number 1. But Zach, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is from Season 1, Episode 3 of The Clone Wars. And it is the Malevolence sequence.
Oh, cool.
Because for me, there's something, the whole episode kind of plays like Jaws a little bit, or like where like it's a big monster in the background. And just the fact that this thing could like incapacitate your ship and then you're just floating in space dead. Like that is scary to me. Also, like the whole thing with Plo Koon and the remaining clone troopers, them surviving like that, there's some high stakes there. You think Grievous is going to get them, and Grievous, if you saw him in real life, I know he's kind of like silly with his cough and all that dude's scary. So that's my number 5. What about you?
Yeah, no, I was just real quick on the Grievous. I was going to say he has literally never been scarier than Tales of the Empire this past year. When just as the lighting has gotten better, the the technology has gotten better. The shadows on his face are terrifying. But my number 5
also
is...
the like fleshy eye parts. Also, as a kid, freaked me out.
Oh, it's the best. It's just the idea
design.
of something happening in there. But okay, so my number 5 is from The Empire Strikes Back. It is the whole cave sequence. Just the idea of what's in there, only what you take with you, and then that Luke has to face down Darth Vader, even though, of course, it's not real. He's a trial. He doesn't know it. And he cuts off Darth Vader's head only to see his own face in the mask. Yeah. It just... That really freaked me out as a kid. I think it's a very underrated scary sequence. Which, while it might not be like, horrifying, there's no jump scare, that still plays for most people the first time they see it. They're like, whoa! So, but yeah, that's my number 5. Zach, what is your number 4?
My number 4, I wanted to kind of diversify, so I actually chose a moment from the comics. Darth Vader, number 25, by Kieran Gillen. At the very end of the comic, this is when Vader has gone back to Tatooine to see Jabba, and you first meet Black Chrysanthemum, and he's basically hiring the bounty hunters, right? But he goes and he massacres Tusken Raider village because he's so still mad at them and so angry at them. And at the end of the comic, they do this little mini story that has no words, but it's the one survivor from the one that killed everybody. And he goes to another Tusken village, and he's like, there's this, monster, basically, and he describes Darth Vader just, like, mowing down, their village, and the village turns on him. They build an effigy to Darth Vader, and then they put him in the center and burn him on fire as a, like, tribute so that that this tragedy doesn't come to them. But I put in my show notes the picture from the end, so Nate, please pop this up. But it's a beautiful, terrifying image of this giant Darth Vader effigy and one Tusken Raider being burnt alive in front of it. And that,
I gotta love some...
That's scary.
Yeah, that's messed up. It's a Star Wars Wicker Man tribute.
Yeah.
All right, so, okay, that's really funny. My number 4 is also from the comics.
Yeah.
And is also involving burning.
Ooh.
So this is from, I don't remember the comic number, but it's Charles Soule's Star Wars run. So this one that just ended. But it is on Luke Skywalker's quest to get his next lightsaber. He finds a Jedi temple on the planet Tempes or Tempest, I don't know, Tempes. And the guardian of that temple is the Grand Inquisitor.
Oh.
But he's this weird kind of like ghostly apparition that is actively on fire.
Oh.
And it ties back into his conversation when Kanan Jarrus defeats him on Rebels. And he's like, there are some things worse than death. And just kind of lets himself fall into flames. We always kind of figured he's trying to save himself from Vader's revenge for his failure, right? He's trying to not... But then in this, you find out he's been trapped in some type of weird thing, and he's just stuck there. And after Luke defeats him, can't kill him, of course, but defeats him, Vader comes by tracking Luke, and the Grand Inquisitor's like, will you release me, please? And Vader's like, no, you're only a tool. And leaves. And so he's stuck there, presumably for all time. That really freaked me out. And I also thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
Don't choose evil. There will be consequences. But yeah, okay. So what's your number 3?
Yeah, going back to the Clone Wars, Season 2, Episode 8. This one is on most people's list, but it's Brain Invaders. It's the story of these Geonosian eggs that have these little worms, and they infect some clones, and then they put more eggs onto this frigate that have Ahsoka and Barriss Offee, and they slowly infect the entire crew except for Ahsoka, and she defeats them by making the ship super cold and like turning off like life support. And it's this like, is she gonna live? Is she gonna die? You know, especially back then, you didn't know if Ahsoka was gonna make it out. And these like worms coming out of people's mouths to like infect you. Very like The Thing meets Star Wars meets Brain Invaders, you know. And then eventually, you know, the worms get killed from the cold. But there's a really dark moment where Barriss is like, kill me now, I'm infected. We can't let this infect other people, and Ahsoka can't do it because it's her friend. And really dark for a kids show, but scary.
So here's the funny thing. That is also my number 3.
Hey!
The Geonosian brain worms from like Zach said, the episode Brain Invaders. Yeah, one of the most underrated episodes for Clone Wars, and it follows probably the most underrated episode, Landing at Point Rain, which is just basically a World War II, or is it? Whatever. The Geonosian arc, where Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ki-Adi-Mundi and Ahsoka and several Jedi heroes are leading clones trying to retake Geonosis. But yeah, these little worms that they look like almost like earthworms. It's weird, just with more greenish tint. They sneak up clone troopers' noses and wrap around their brains and basically essentially turn them into zombies, following the hive mind. And it is so fun and so creepy, and it's very much like Alien, because then all of a sudden they have all these eggs that they seem to be coming from somewhere, but we don't really know where. And I love it. So there you go. Yeah. All right. So Zach, what is your number 2?
My number 2, most people don't view this one as scary because of how just cool it is. But it's the Rogue One Darth Vader hallway sequence when it's all black and they're like, and the thing is going off and he just lights the lightsaber and then murders like 12 people in 2 seconds, you know? And there's the moment every time where he force pushes somebody up into the ceiling, and then as he walks past, just slices them in half, and then, you know, kills the guy in the door. Like, in real life, the most terrifying sequence maybe of Star Wars, you know? But yeah, that's my number 2.
And just the way the one guy, help us! It's terrifying.
Also,
it's so cool, but it's
fun
terrifying.
fact, that sequence came from the reshoots. It was not in the original movie. So, you know, people poo-poo reshoots, but sometimes it gives you a really cool sequence.
Mm-hmm. Well, and and we'll never know exactly what was reshoots and what wasn't, and what was the actual plans. We do know that, like you said, that was one of the last things that they shot.
Yeah.
But there was a point in development where the people he was going to be murdering were Jyn Erso and her team.
That would have been.
I'm kind of happy that didn't happen, because that would have been a whole other level of like I like that their deaths, they all got to win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But no, it's a fantastic sequence, very, very scary.
Yeah.
Just when it's dark and he lights up the lightsaber, and that's what makes you see him.
And I think as fans, it's one of the first times that you're like, yeah, Darth Vader's always been scary, but he's terrifying. Like, like he's dramatic. He's like, I'm gonna go in this dark hallway, and I'm in all black. They're not gonna be able to see me. Lightsaber!
Like, they'll never know I'm coming. He like tiptoes into the hallway.
Right.
And, like, all right. Okay. Hold your breath. Okay. All right. But now my number 2 is a deep, deep, deep cut from Legends that also, oddly enough, ties into Rogue One. This is the torture of the guy that was responsible for the Death Star in Legends, and his name is Bevel Lemelisk. Ridiculous name, but you gotta love Star Wars being Star Wars. Basically, after what Palpatine saw as his failure with the first Death Star, as Bevel Lemelisk was basically drafting and redrafting versions for Death Star 2, every time it wouldn't work or there would be a problem, Sidious would murder him in increasingly brutal, horrible ways to then clone him and be like, try again. And
Does he have the memories of the previous?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And he would do it again and again and again and again and again. But, you know, this is back when Legends could do whatever. Cloning is, in canon so far, cloning has pretty much been condensed to the Kaminoans. But in Legends, it was all over the place. There was all kinds of clones because nobody knew what the Clone Wars were for a while. So they just kind of made up stuff. But that, as a kid, it's from the novel Darksaber, which is a commonly reviled Star Wars novel, very hated. But that moment really, really freaked me out. So that's my number 2.
Yeah. Well, then I guess it's time for honorable mentions. I have one which will tie into our next segment that we do, but it is the Dianoga sequence in A New Hope with the single eye stalk that comes out, because that thing was gnarly, and then Luke goes down, and then he has a tentacle around his neck, and you don't know what it is. You just know that it somehow lives in a trash compactor and is gonna eat him. So that's my honorable mention. Matt, what are your honorable mentions?
That's a great one. My first one might be kind of spicy, but as silly as it is, I still say the first scene on Exegol in Rise of Skywalker is an effective scene.
Yeah.
Like, it's just creepy enough that, like, it's kind of exciting, but it's not so scary that, like, little kids would be, like, losing their minds. Right? But
and you have Snoke's in a jar, and you have, you know.
There's things that, in the context of 2019, we were like, what? With hindsight, it's like, yeah, now that we know that that's what it is what it is. But, and just the reveal of Palpatine, as silly as of an idea as it was for many people, I think the reveal is effective of him as basically this mummified, decayed corpse hooked up to this giant robot arm. I still think plays as creepy and, like, effective and cool. They could have done something so sillier, right? I do think they did a good job. And then my other honorable mention is from another very recent one, and it's it's everything Night Sisters.
Yeah, the Night Sisters are great.
But specifically the Stormtrooper zombies on the finale of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
It's not really creepy as much as it's, like, fun. Mm-hmm. But that's probably the most, like, Halloween-esque Star Wars thing that, that fans have to watch. Just like everything else, that sequence of all the Night Sister witches, reanimating the Stormtroopers, and now they have to fight zombies for the first time. It's very, very fun.
I will also honorable mention the Night Sisters episode from Rebels, where Sabine has to, like, face Kanan and all them with the glowing green eyes. Night Sisters are spooky.
Yeah. I mean, they're the closest we get to actual witches, right? Originally from the courtship of Princess Leia in like 96 or 97 or something, one of the Legends novels, and then canonized in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Canonized and made different, but I like them both. I like them all. But okay, Zach, what is your number one scariest Star Wars moment of all time?
Yeah, it's actually your number 4. It's the Dagobah cave scene. Because as a kid, cool. that whole sequence is terrifying. He's like, he goes down into the cave. You don't know what's going to happen. There's bugs on the walls, which is also just like, and then Darth Vader comes out, and you're like, oh my God, Darth Vader's on this planet. He's going to kill him, and then they have their battle, and the head comes off, and that mask, blowing up and Luke being underneath. I didn't get the symbolism as a kid, fully. I was just like, that's terrifying. He is Darth Vader? What's going on? Especially when you're really young. But that whole sequence for me, growing up was really the spookiest of Star Wars.
The spookiest.
What is your number 1?
Well, so it, in all honesty, it's my personal fears. My number 1 scariest Star Wars moment of all time. Everybody will laugh at me, but it is on the Clone Wars. This is season 4. It's the initial moment when Savage Press falls down into the lowest level of the junk planet on Lotho Minor, and then behind him is the silhouette of a spider creature. I talked about it on our 2 weeks ago, and I was like, no, please do not do this. And it's framed just like Lord of the Rings with, like, Shelob coming up behind him and stuff. And it was just a silhouette. Once it was revealed as Maul, as basically from the upper half, the upper half he is a humanoid, and then the lower half he's a spider. I was like, okay, he's a Drider from D&D. This isn't the worst thing I've ever seen. But literally just that moment, and it just walking spidery up behind him. I was going, no, please, no. So had that been in live action, I would have gone, Aah! And like run out of the theater.
Yeah.
So that's I just gotta, if I'm honest, that's my number 1. Okay. So
All right.
sticking with the Star Wars ranked and lists and confronting our fears while talking about them. Scariest Star Wars monsters of all time. I've got 5 and Zach has 5.
Let's have you start first on this one since I started first on the last one.
Alrighty.
What is your number? We're also, listeners, going to give you a little excerpt on what each of these monsters is.
Yeah. I took some stuff from Wikipedia, shout out. I rewrote him a little bit, but my number 5 is actually the Sarlacc.
Yeah.
Now I will say the one that I'm talking about that I think is scary is the original Sarlacc, just the pit with the teeth. I love the beak from Special Edition, right? If you don't know what we're talking about, the beak was not always there. It was just this pit with fangs and tentacles, and just that always freaked me out as a youth. I like that the beak makes it an active combatant, like in the fight, right? And then you get the cool moment in Book of Boba Fett where like it's trying to grab the ship and drag it down and everything. But the original one really, really freaked me out. And so here's the Wikipedia write-up. Sarlaccs were dangerous, carnivorous creatures located on Tatooine and several other places throughout the galaxy. They shared common ancestry with other species, including the Rathtar, Blixus, and Vixus. One Sarlacc, identified as the Almighty Sarlacc, lived in the Great Pit of Carkoon, a depression of sand within Tatooine's Dune Sea, and served as one of Jabba the Hutt's favorite pets and a means of execution. It's cool in canon, because they have a beak and stuff, Sarlaccs have been revealed to be like their own thing. They're basically like a chicken, like a giant chicken that runs around and stuff, and then they sometimes will like basically dig a hole and live in those pits, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so my number 1 is the original Sarlacc, or my number 5 rather is the original Sarlacc. So Zach, what's your number 5?
Yeah, I pulled from the video games for this one. This comes from Jedi Fallen Order, The Great Ogdo. If you don't remember, it's the kind of frog-looking like it's a mixture between a frog, a lizard, has 3 eyes, big teeth. But this was on like the side of that Zepho planet, and it was one of the hardest bosses to beat. To give the write-up and to explain why it's so hard, Ogdos were a carnivorous species native to the planet Bogano. Ogdos were alpha predators and used their adhesive tongues to attack their prey. They had thick, lightsaber-resistant hide, making them dangerous at close range. A subspecies of creature was the Ogdo-Bogdo. In 14 BBY, Jedi Padawan Cal Kestis encountered and fought several Ogdos on Bogano during his search for the ancient Zephonian vault on the planet. I died to this thing, I think, 50 to 100 times. Because he was in a place that sometimes you would fall into too, and you'd be like, no, I gotta get out, and then his tongue would grab you, and it truly was a Dark Souls monster where you had to dodge and attack, and it was hard.
Ogdo-Bogdo.
Ogdo-Bogdo.
Yeah. Nothing like a big, scary frog creature. Go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was gonna continue into the next one. What is your number 4?
Sick. All right, so I'm actually debating. I'm gonna make a change, and I'm gonna move something down. So my number 4 is we're going deep cuts here, kids. I'm going something called a Star Weird. This is from a Wizards of the Coast source book in 2004. Wizards of the Coast, the company that owns D&D now, used to own Star Wars and the rights to the Star Wars role-playing game.
Ooh.
And this was created in, I think it was a source book called Ultimate Adversaries. So here's a bunch of weird stuff for your players to fight. So here's the write-up for it. Star Weirds were a species of incorporeal humanoids found only in space. Tall and gaunt, they possessed long, sharp talons, wild white hair, and glowing eyes. The creatures appeared to spacers repairing their starships in space or aboard vessels currently traveling through hyperspace. A Star Weird would choose a target, and after being spotted, emit a telepathic scream, powerful enough sound that could reach a height comparable to that of a starfighter engine, causing great pain to their victims, perhaps even making their ears bleed. It was considerably difficult to injure Star Weirds, as blasters were not effective, even having practically its entire body impaled, a star weird would continue to pursue its target. They inhabited the vacuum of space and were considered extinct until the last years of the Imperial era. And then in current comics, the rogue archaeologist Dr. Aphra and the Jedi Luke Skywalker accidentally released a star weird during Aphra's attempt to recover Kaithu's bell, which she believed to be a Jedi artifact, but was in fact a security system installed at the temple to help keep the star weird sealed. That's from recent comic books. So yeah, it's basically the simple version, a space ghost. A creepy-looking space ghost.
Very skeletal.
Very, very skeletal, long hair, just this weird thing that it can apparently just appear in hyperspace.
It reminds me of a siren, from, like, Irish mythology,
Yeah.
Or
a siren or a banshee or anything like that. But just, like, pure, none of the alluringness, just, I'm going to show up and scream at you until your ears start bleeding and you start to die. So yeah, there you go. Zach, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is the cyborg/spider tank from The Mandalorian. On planet Mandalore, that's like gathering people. It has that one really big eye that you can see something's in there, but then its body has like tubes and skeletons, and it's kind of spider, kind of crab-like. The write-up is not much for it because it hasn't really been explored much beyond that episode, but the spider tank was a large, manually controlled model of droid utilized by a cyborg that resided on the planet Mandalore around 9 ABY. The cyborg utilized its spider tank to capture and sedate the Mandalorian bounty hunter Din Djarin. It was later destroyed by Bo-Katan Kryze when she arrived on Mandalore to save Djarin. But that's a cool sequence. I remember when it happened, I was like, oh, this thing is like actually pretty rough. Also, it's like, was this a former Mandalorian? Because it's been living on this planet for years and years after the destructions of Mandalore. It's creepy. It's spooky.
Yeah. It was something that I like, that sometimes I would be okay with Star Wars doing more of this. Here is a weird, creepy monster with no explanation that it serves a little purpose in this story, and then it's gone, and it's memorable because it was weird and creepy, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, when you think about it, that's what everything in the original movies was. We talked about last week, like the dragon snake, right? You had no clue it was a snake or how big it was. It didn't matter. The point is, here's a creepy monster that's going to eat R2-D2, and then he escapes. It just establishes that there's threats off screen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like that it's like, what is this thing? And I'm not saying that you don't. Like, I feel like you do too.
Yeah.
But I like that it's just, who knows? It's creepy and it's weird, and that's the type of stuff that happens in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Good
Nice.
pull.
What
Love
is
that
your...
moment.
Yeah, it's good. It also adds enough threat on a planet that you're like, I don't know what threats we could have on this planet,
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty.
Number 3.
So my number 3 is another deep cut. This is from another source book. Not intentional, but this is kind of what happened. And then as I'm researching things, I'm like, oh, this is from a source book? I was wrong. I thought this was from novels. But it's the Nal Nal. MGGAL-MGGAL. Get ready. This is weird and strange. Nal Nal was a being composed solely of thick gray ooze, able to move quickly and create a multitude of different forms. It was slimy to touch and smelled of sweet rot. Gross! It was a shapeshifter and would form far-ranging pseudopods and eye stalks to explore or interact with others or attack others with a fanged mouth. It could break its mass apart, spreading by creating worm-like forms, and was even able to fly by forming bat creatures. Nal Nal's most deadly form of movement was by infecting and controlling other sentient beings. Once a being encountered a pool of Nal Nal, the surface of the pool would explode outward, showering the being in droplets of the entity's body. The drops would then begin to slide towards the being's mouth and nostrils, but it was also able to enter the body through pores on a being's skin if need be. It would first penetrate the cranium, digest the brain, then move on to the internal organs and other tissues, increasing its mass all the while. It digested its victims from the inside out, filling every part of the body as it expanded and grew within the lifeless husk. Within 24 hours, the victim was dead, filled entirely with Nal Nal. So this is basically this is literally the thing.
Yeah.
This is the thing from the Kurt Russell movie, and it's it's a source book. They're like, let's create new problems. This is something that if it got out, it could spread just throughout the galaxy, because every time it separates from the whole, it's still part of the hive mind.
Oh,
right.
It's like the flood from Halo.
It's like the flood, but just
Yeah.
like pure like liquid, like T-1000 from Terminator 2 and stuff, right? Yeah, definitely creepy. And I definitely thought it was from stories, because I've just heard about it from other nerds and other YouTube videos many, many times over the years. And it is, in fact, from role-playing game source books.
Hey.
So there you go. The Null.
Very
Zach,
creepy.
what's your next one?
Mine is actually one that we've already talked about. The Sarlacc is my number 3.
Yeah!
Something about, we've already read what the Wikipedia entry says, but there was something about being digested over 1,000 years. That as a kid, you're like, oh my God, you're in pain for 1,000 years? But then you grow up and you're like, so you're going to die in 2 weeks. Because like, if you can't eat, you can't drink, you're going to die. Unless it has something that keeps you alive for 1,000 years, because then that's pain. But yeah, there was something about that, and the tentacles when it first came out, and the teeth. I found it scarier without the beak. I agree that the beak I think is fun to make it active, but like the teeth and just it being a hole in the ground that it's like a giant mouth stomach, and the teeth are face downwards, so you can't even get out. And like they're meant to keep things inside. I always found that thing really, really scary. But fun fact that we haven't talked about, if you are at any of the parks for Star Wars, they have a mini Sarlacc in, what is his name's? It's not the Cantina.
Oh, Doc Ondar.
Doc Ondar, yeah. He has a mini Sarlacc that you can see the anatomy of the Sarlacc underneath the ground. But,
yeah, it's awesome. That's where you get the chicken look of the Sarlacc that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
There's a Han and Chewie comic where they have to like basically hunt and or capture a loose Sarlacc chicken. It's pretty fun. It's good stuff.
Nice.
Cool. We
Number
love
2.
the Sarlacc.
Yeah.
All right. So this one is actually from books. But number 2, this is a character that a lot of people think could appear in Ahsoka season 2. But this is the Mother, aka Abeloth, originally from the Fate of the Jedi book series. Abeloth, self-named the beloved Queen of the Stars, also known as the Bringer of Chaos and the Destructor, was an extremely powerful Force entity. Her dark side powers and immortality derived from her being corrupted by drinking from the font of power and bathing in the pool of knowledge. She first lived as the Servant, a mortal woman who served the powerful Ones. This is the mother, not the mother, this is the Ones were in Legends, were the son, daughter, and father of Mortis from the Mortis episodes on Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
She served the Ones on a jungle planet over 100,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. She eventually became the Mother, keeping peace between the father's warring son and daughter as a part of the family. However, she grew old while the father and their children did not, and she feared she would lose this family. In a desperate attempt to hold on to the life she loved, she drank from the font of power and bathed in the pool of knowledge. Her actions corrupted her, transforming the Mother into the twisted, immortal entity known as Abeloth. When the father first discovered her crime, he departed the planet with his children and left Abeloth stranded. And the son and daughter enlisted the help of the Killiks, this is Deep Legends, to create massive technological artifacts such as Centerpoint Station, Sinkhole Station, to imprison Abeloth in the Maw. In canon, you see a canon version of the Maw, which is this giant black hole that the huge, vacuum-breathing octopus monster comes at them. This is solo a Star Wars story, right? Yeah. In Legends, the Maw was near Kessel, but it was a cluster of black holes that had been created to imprison, basically, Star Wars Satan, a.k.a. Abeloth. And this was all from the Fate of the Jedi book series in Legends, where they wanted to tie into Mortis, and then had Legends continued, the next thing they were going to do was go look for the father, son, and daughter,
Mm.
which could very well be what we're going to see in Ahsoka Season 2.
Yeah. It's also a really cool character design. I mean, she has that, like, Eren Yeager, like, teeth, like, cheek thing, you know? She's definitely spooky.
Yeah.
She's my honorable mention.
There you go.
For later. So.
There you go. Yeah, Abeloth. I hope she shows up in Ahsoka Season 2 because that sounds weird and impossible, and I would like to see an attempt at that. That sounds fun.
Yeah. Also, to get a canon version of that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure.
My number 2, I teased it earlier, is the Dianoga. This is the trash squid from A New Hope. One of the first monsters that we really kind of see on screen that's like truly a monster. The Dianoga were sentient cephalopods characterized by 7 suckered tentacles, an eye stalk, a mouth of sharp teeth, and several hearts. They could grow to the length of 7 to 10 meters. Their blood had a blue tint. The Dianoga were omnivores, feeding on smaller animals like fish and crabs, but also feeding on the bones of aquatic plants. The trash squid was a part of the Dianoga family. When you look at the like big picture of a Dianoga, it's terrifying. I mean, it truly, like, it would be like an for our listeners at home, if you don't want to go look it up, it's kind of like a teethed mouth on the bottom of a squid, but instead of like a big squid like head, it has an eye stalk that we saw from A New Hope, and that red creepy eye. But definitely sparks the imagination when you first see it in that first movie, and then when you see it fully rendered, you're like, oh.
Classic monster. Yeah. Classic creepy Star Wars monster. I like it. Well, I'm actually a bit of a failure. I don't have an honorable mention.
Ooh, I have one that is not Abeloth.
Go for it. Let me see if I can come up with one.
Okay, so this one could be argued is not a monster, but I think is a monstrosity. Snai Snoodles is my honorable mention, which is the singer of Jedi Rocks from Return of the Jedi. It's the one that goes, but when you look at it, it's got like a weird, so it has like tusks like a boar, but then a snout that you would assume would be a trunk, but then at the end it has big red lips, and then it has 2 creepy little eye stalks, and then its body is like, there's like some form of chest organs that, you know, are weird. I don't know. It's just like everything about it to me is repulsive and weird and like. There's also in Lego Star Wars, the complete saga that just came out. You have to like help Snai Snoodles on a mission, and I really hated it. I was like, I don't want to help this thing, man. Like, this thing's weird. I don't like it. Like.
Yeah,
it's just like everything about it creeps me out.
This is so funny.
There's something about the lips on the end of the trunk that really does it, because they're so human, and there's teeth in them even. You know, like, it's weird.
One of my favorite, just weird, silly Star Wars characters that she doesn't make any sense, and it's awesome. Also, the star of one of my favorite Clone Wars episodes, The Hunt for Zero.
Oh, is she? Yes, she is in that too.
She is the girlfriend of Jabba the Hutt's nephew, Zero the Hutt, a.k.a. one of my least favorite Star Wars things, Zero the Hutt.
What are you talking about? You love Zero.
I can't do that. I can't even do the voice. I'm incapable. I hate it so much. But, I love that episode. It's dumb and stupid and so fun. They open it with Snai Snoodles basically singing Star Wars Anything Goes in a reference to the beginning of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, right? That she's the like go-to Hutt clan or Hutt cartel nightclub singer.
Yeah.
I just think it's hilarious. It's funny. Alrighty. Well, so our number one.
Number one.
Again.
I'm curious if we have the same number one.
I mean, we don't. You guys know me. You know what my number one is. It's the Kessel Spice Spiders. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. That is, what's your deepest fear? Being in a cave, chained up, having to like dig for spice, and the only way that I can see what I'm doing is I got to turn a light on, and that's going to attract a giant spider. There is nothing else that is terrifying. Most time, I got to keep the lights off and just hope for the best. Just hope for the best. They could be right next to me. Have no way of knowing. None whatsoever. Also, blasters don't work on it. Awesome. So great. That's my number one. I'm not even going to give you all another write-up because you heard me talk about it. Yeah. If anything, we'll put in the clip of me cussing about it last time. So that's my number one.
My number one for monsters, it's the biggest one. It's the coolest one. It's the Rancor. I think Rancors are so cool. This goes on more on the favorite and less on the scary. Although, as a kid, that thing was terrifying. There's that moment where he takes a bone and chews it. Luke puts the bone in there and then he snaps it in half just to show how strong it is, and he eats the pig man. Terrifying when you're growing up. But Rancors were very large, semi-sentient reptilian carnivores native to the planet Dathomir. Although they were also introduced to and present on Felucia, Tatooine, and Kobo. Rancors were often seen as mindless, violent creatures due to their extensive use as fighters across the galaxy, but were also capable of being trained and bonding well with their handlers and acquaintances. Cool bit of lore that I didn't realize that they come from Dathomir,
yes.
Which I think is explored in the Clone Wars, but I think I had forgotten that.
It's from the book that I referenced earlier, Courtship of Princess Leia.
Okay.
Rancors are trained and ridden into battle by the original versions of the Night Sisters. That's where Boba Fett riding it on Book of Boba Fett comes from. That's where that idea comes from.
Also, a really, honestly, probably my favorite sequence of that show is him.
Oh yeah, Rancor. It's so fun. It's basically what if Boba Fett was riding King Kong?
Yeah.
Into battle. It's again, turn your brain off, have a good time.
Yeah.
Right.
But
cool.
Just also to add to, when you analyze this thing, the fingers are so claw-like. It's also covered in slime. I remember as a kid I had the toy where you could feed it something and then lift its tail and it would poop it out. Whether that be a bone or a little pig thing. It might have been a Lego something. I can't remember, but I remember playing with this thing as a kid, just being I'm gonna destroy everything. It is kind of their. It's not exactly their Godzilla because the Zillo Beast exists, but
right,
kind of their original nod to that. And,
right.
It's cool and creepy, and I'm glad that we got more lore on it from Book of Boba Fett, and it's not just a mindless killing machine, but it's kind of like a pit bull where it's trained to be bad, but at heart it's just an animal. It's a cool, creepy looking animal.
Right on. The Force is present in all life.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we've had some classic monsters, but for a more current thing, Zach, what is your scariest Star Wars thing, moment, monster, whatever, your scariest Star Wars thing of the year?
Of the year. So I'm gonna get a lot of hate on it because when you mention this show, anytime you get hate. But it is the end of Episode 4 into Episode 5 of The Acolyte. The stranger in that moment when he flies down, which
floats
is
down out of the sky.
Really creepy.
Yeah.
His mask is creepy. She turns around. He lights the lightsaber right in front of her face. And you're she's dead. Cool. We're done. And then he, pushes her to the side. But then he's scary, dude. He takes out so many Jedi at the same time, and truly the most violent I think we've ever seen a Sith in Star Wars. He breaks Yord's neck. Spoilers. He shish kebabs 3 Jedi. He is violent and vicious and driven and truly Sith and scary. So that's for the year. That's my number one most scary thing. What about you?
The same thing. Specifically, I was going to say just basically the entirety of Episode 5, Night, as it's called. Because the Umbra Moths, those creatures are terrifying. All the fighting is terrifying. This is what I said it in our initial review. This is what Darth Maul would be if he was put in a story with characters that could die.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems with Clone Wars is that so often the leads of the episode are Obi-Wan, Anakin. We know they're going to make it out of that moment. Rarely, and it's a kids show, so you can't really. It's on Cartoon Network. You could not have had Maul mowing down expendable red shirts like the Stranger could in this scene, where all those other Jedi that were present were just there to be meat for him to slice through. And then, like you said, just the moment of him snapping Yord's neck and 3-hole punching Jekki.
Oh, yeah.
Right? This is an oversimplification, but I saw the meme everywhere of Ahsoka looking at Jekki and going, "Who are you?" And Jekki saying, "You without plot armor." And, that's an oversimplification for sure, but at the same time, just to break from Star Wars tradition and brutally murder characters that we have come to like, it was terrifying. And just literally just the moment where the Stranger snaps his head towards all the Jedi at the end of episode 4 and charges forward, that alone, just something so unnatural about his head moving and the way he floated down out of the sky. That might be the best villain entrance ever in Star Wars. I don't care what anybody says. Vader's entrance is great. Darth Maul being on the other side of the door in episode 1 is great. Palpatine never really has a fantastic entrance.
Yeah.
And but so many of those are like Vader riding in standing on a TIE fighter on Rebels. Fantastic. But none of it is as simple and creepy as an incredibly vicious villain, masked, silently floating down out of the sky behind our main character.
Yeah.
It was absolutely terrifying. I remember going and holding myself. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Also, to shout out, watched that episode with my partner Kai, and multiple times we had to pause it for her to emotionally just okay, cool, I have to take a second because that character just got its neck snapped and that was so violent and scary, and then Jekki we had to pause again. It was just feeling oh.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Okay. So there we go. We've talked about a bunch of our scary things, and now we're hoping to deliver unto you some scary things. So we talked about The Raven, one of my favorite poems ever, and so we will now indulge ourselves a little bit and have a reading of a Star Wars version of The Raven. Mm-hmm. This would be a nightmare from the perspective of Darth Maul. Here we go.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten Sith lore, while I nodded nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
"'Tis some visitor,"
I muttered,
"tapping at my chamber door, only this and nothing more."
Ah, distinctly I remember it was in that black December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow for the lost Mandalore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Mandalore, nevertheless here for evermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, for that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating.
"'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more."
Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer.
"Sir,"
said I,
"or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you."
Here I opened wide the door, darkness there and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul with me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before.
"Surely,"
said I,
Surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore.
Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mine of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat and nothing more.
Thou thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou,
I said.
art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore.
Quoth the raven,
Nevermore.
Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tuft floor.
Wretch!
I cried.
Thy God hath lent thee, by these angels hath sent thee, respite, and nepenthe from thy memories of Mandalore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Mandalore.
Quoth the raven,
Nevermore. Be that word or sign of parting, bird or fiend.
I shrieked, upstarting.
Get thee back into the tempest, night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quite the bust above my door. Take thy break from out thy heart, and take thy form from off my door.
Quoth the raven,
Nevermore.
and the raven never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon that is streaming, and the lamp's light o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out the shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
All right, well, that was silly.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was that's our reading somebody else's scary stories. But now it's time to transition into our scary stories. So, Zach, do you want to pitch them anything or explain anything about yours before they hear it?
Yeah, I was watching Last Voyage of the Demeter, and there were some blood transfusions happening on the ship. And then I was listening to the Michael Bush interview, and you talked about infecting people with metachlorians. And so I kind of combined those two, and that's all I'll say. It is done as a series of police reports or Jedi reports from the High Republic. Picked by Master Sunube, which, if you don't remember Master Sunube, they are that old Jedi who is apparently a, underworld, savant expert that helped Ahsoka kind of find her way at one point. So that's kind of all the background you need from it. And without further ado...
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
High Republic Archives. File: The Dr. Sanguine Murders. Place: Coruscant. File requested by Jedi Master Sunube. Overview: The Dr. Sanguine Murders were a series of murders targeting Jedi on the planet Coruscant 100 years ago by a person the media named Dr. Sanguine. The leading investigating Jedi was a Shistavinian named Hark Rengar. Entry 1.
This is Jedi Master Hark Rengar reporting. I've been assigned by the Jedi High Council as lead investigator on a series of murders here on Coruscant. The first victim was found 1 month ago. Newly appointed Jedi Knight Min-Na.
Me and Na had been celebrating after being knighted from Padawan. The Jedi Knight was last seen stumbling out of the Moshi bar and was found in an alley. It's a strange thing. As a Shistavinian, my sense of smell is heightened. When I was brought to the crime scene, though, I couldn't smell a drop of blood. Jedi Knight Min-Na had no blood left in her body when she was discovered. There were no signs of struggle, and the only wound on the body was a small puncture to the inner left elbow. It's not often a Jedi Knight is killed, especially without a sign of struggle. I had a bad feeling that this was not the only murder that would happen.
Entry 2. 2 weeks later.
Another of our order has fallen. Jedi Knight Seward was patrolling level 1313 when, from what evidence shows, he was attacked and pushed into a wall, the blunt force from the wall being the cause of his death. The head wound was the only drops of blood left in his body, as again, a puncture wound was found in the crook of his elbow. Neither victim knew each other, outside of being in the Order. This appears to be an attack on the Order itself. I brought in my former Padawan, Jedi Knight Van Sing, to hopefully help me solve this case quicker.
Entry 3. 1 month later.
Jedi Knight Van Sing, reporting. My master was too upset to report this one. A third body has been found. This one a few blocks away from the Senate building. The Jedi was found without blood, the only sign of struggle being bruising on the neck, presumably from a choke of some type. Our murder grows bolder. We finally got a piece of evidence, though. A small needle. Master Rengar was able to smell the single drop of blood left in the needle, a few feet away from the body. Unfortunately, news of this murder has broken to the press. They've named our killer Dr. Sanguine, as all of the victims have been exsanguinated, and a needle was found. I've never seen my master so upset as he is now. We must find Dr. Sanguine and figure out why he's taking Jedi blood.
Entry 4. 2 weeks later.
Why does the best evidence come from tragedy? Dr. Sanguine has somehow managed to kill a Jedi Master, Gil Mero. The tension in the Jedi Temple rises, as we are restricting all Jedi from traveling alone. This great tragedy has brought a lead in the case, though. Master Mero did not go without a fight. A splatter of blood was found on Master Mero's tunic that was not Mero's. Master Rengar was able to catch the scent from it, and has been tirelessly searching for Dr. Sanguine. I pray he finds him soon.
Entry 5. 1 week later.
Jedi Knight Van Sing, my master went missing 2 days ago investigating a missing Jedi, but a tracking beacon he had just started working. We're on our way now to back him up or save him.
Entry 6. 1 day later.
Jedi Master Hark Rengar. I found Dr. Sanguine's lab. When I arrived, a tall, thin humanoid with long white hair worked at a series of tubes and equipment. Next to him on a table lay Jedi Garrick. She had gone missing a day before, and I was able to track her scent to the lab after investigating her quarters. There was a tube connecting her arm to his, and it seemed to be performing a blood transfusion. I ran in, but was stopped in my tracks by the Force. Dr. Sanguine was using the Force to hold me in place. He shouldn't have been able to do so, but I was stuck. He then turned, his face thin, skeletal with one ruined green eye, and said,
"Ah, Jedi Master Rengar, we finally meet. I'm surprised you found me so easily, but your keen senses seem to have done you service. I know what you're thinking. How could one so untrained in the Force stop a Jedi Master in their tracks? I've learned that if I replace my blood With a Jedi's metachlorian rich blood, I can access power beyond imagine. Skill I may not have, but power is mine.
It was at this moment that I was able to calm myself and connect to the Force again. I force-pulled a book from the table, hitting Dr. Sanguine in the head, breaking his concentration on holding me. I rushed at him, but before I could reach him, he grabbed a vial from the table and threw it at the ground. Smoke filled the room, and when it cleared, Dr. Sanguine was nowhere to be found. Jedi Garrick was barely alive. A moment later, Jedi Van Sing arrived with a group of Jedi. We were able to get Garrick back to the temple, and her condition has stabilized.
Last entry, 3 months later.
Jedi Master Hark Rengar. The search for Dr. Sanguine has run cold. No more victims have appeared. My only hope is that something has gone awry in the Doctor's plans, and he lies at the bottom of a cold ditch.
End of archive.
Excuse me, Master Sunube. Sorry to interrupt your reading, but another Jedi has been found. They had no blood.
Nice. I like that one. Zach made a sequel for himself, or a potential for a sequel for next year. No pressure. But, no, you got to... Zach's a talented actor. Hire him. Got to hear lots of different little voices there. Lots of made-up Jedi. It was cool.
Yeah.
But,
also, now that you've listened to it, I took the names of all the characters are based on either Dracula characters. Hark Rengar is Harkness. Rengar was a flip of Warren. I was playing on Warren because Warren was one of the investigators on the Jack the Ripper cases. Mina is Mina from Dracula. Van Sling is Van Helsing. Van Sing is Van Helsing. And a couple of the other characters are nods to other literary characters from either Dracula or real life people from the investigations of Jack the Ripper. So
that's awesome. I'm so dumb, and I did not get all of those character illusions. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. Well, now for something completely different. This is very much not an adventure story. This might be a little existentially disturbing, but I wanted to tell a story of the potential of what happens to a Jedi if they are consumed and killed by hate and fear and the dark side. So here we go.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
Jedi younglings have a legend among them. If you are killed and consumed by the dark side of the Force, you'll be trapped in that moment forever. Just a story designed to scare the smallest ones before they've mastered their fears. That's what Soars had always told himself. That's what he told himself now. But now the Jedi Temple was burning. No one knew why. No one knew how. But their own clone troopers were swarming and gunning down Jedi. All Soars Bandim and his friends knew in this moment was to run. So he gathered up whatever younglings he could save, and they ran. Clones were covering all exits. They were coming from everywhere. One safe space was left. Up in the tower. In the Jedi Council chamber. Rising smoke choked their lungs as they climbed. Screams, blaster fire, lightsabers. The horrors of the Clone War had invaded their home. Once in the chamber, they locked the door and hid, until they heard footsteps approaching the chamber door. What joy filled him, what hope, as it wasn't a clone that walked through the opening, but none other than Anakin Skywalker. Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do? The words escaped his lips before he planned them. He could only watch as Skywalker did not respond, and instead ignited his lightsaber. In this moment, Soars realized the legend was real. He had been here before. He had seen the anger on Skywalker's face before, been cut down by his lightsaber before. All of it had happened more times than he could count, and it had been happening longer than he could remember. The legend was real. In its purest form, the dark side has taken him and trapped him in this moment of pure evil. Every day, Anakin Skywalker kills him, only for it to happen again and again, until the door opened, and as Anakin stepped into the chamber, Soars woke up within his nightmare, not to discover his imminent doom, but instead that something was different. He saw Anakin lower his hood, lower himself to one knee to be level with the younglings, and offer a hand towards them. His face looked the same as it always had, and yet it was very different. The anger was gone, and in its place a deep, regretful sadness, and hope. "Who are you?" Soars asked, in a moment's pause. Anakin Skywalker responded, "I am a Jedi, like my son before me." Anakin looked behind him in the open doorway, as though he had heard someone speaking. With a warm, comforting smile, he looked back to Soars and the others. "Let's go home."
And we're back.
Yeah, that was so
Hope it
great.
wasn't too. Thanks, man. Hope it wasn't too frightening. I realized, the children in peril is always a touchy subject. But I wanted to. Something that Star Wars hasn't done yet is show a Darksider atoning for their wrongs, and in many ways, I wanted to give the greatest Jedi, the greatest Darksider. In my headcanon, that happened.
Yeah, that's
Right,
really sweet.
he's been going around kind of. It's almost like it's in different myths of death or whatever, ushering people to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, in my mind, that's something that the Chosen One does after he leaves, not the Prime Material plane, but I guess after he's left this life. So there you go. It's not a ghost story. It's an unghost story.
It's a story about ghosts.
There you go. It's a story about ghosts and them finding peace. And because we're on good vibes, I'm gonna turn the lights back on.
I will do the same.
Because while we had our Halloween spectacular, fear is the path to the dark side. It's fun to indulge in these things, but love and joy and compassion, all that stuff always wins. But as does the force of others. So hit us with your scary stories in the comments below, or tweet us, whatever, all those things. We hope you have a good Halloween this year.
Mm-hmm.
But Zach, where can the people find you? What do you have going on over the next little bit?
Yeah, I'm at Satisfaction on most social medias. You can find me there, but the best ways, again, always to email the show, forceofothersradio@gmail.com. We're hitting holiday season, so I don't have anything much coming up to announce, but, if you want to interact with us, we also have started our interview questions as TikToks, so that you can stitch and duet or leave it in the comments or, clip it and add it to your YouTube video. But we want to hear from you. We have built this about, hearing many different perspectives on the universe that we all love. So interact with those, and we will be back next week with another episode. Matt, where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Matt Beutner, Beutner. Good luck with your spelling. It's Bew with a tenor on the end. You can also find me and Zach on Twitter and Instagram, and Zach's exclusively on TikTok, but at Force of Others, where we do all that stuff. Posted a lot less last week because I got very, very busy.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still learning how the YouTube thing works and when it decides what short is going to get reshared and all of a sudden jump up to like 9,000 views after having like 800. It's wild. I still don't get it. Maybe one day I will, but I'm not really worried about it. We're here for you. We want to hear what you have to say with all these stitches and duets, and I am too old to know what that means or how it works. Just send us those videos, and we will probably put them on the show as transitions. I solemnly vow, as long as it is a good faith opinion and not a Star Wars sucks, and if you like it, you're woke trash. As long as it's not that, I will gladly put pretty much whatever PG things you have to say on the show. And I know Zach feels the same way. This is the force of others and not the force of Zach and I. So, yeah. But without further ado, hope you have a wonderful Halloween. And then immediately after that, come November 1st, I am the type that the Halloween decorations go away and Christmas season comes early, kids. We're saying it right now. I think it's 3 weeks from this, 2 weeks after this episode, the holiday special premiered on November 18th, 1978. And let me make sure I have this right. But, yeah, on Monday, November 18th, Zach and I will be recording our commentary track, our watch-along commentary track for the Star Wars Holiday Special. It will be the first time I watch it in completion, and probably the last time I watch it in completion, unless y'all really love what we have to say, and then might make a year out of this thing. And maybe we'll subject a new victim to it every year. But we got other fun stuff coming in between that. We got some interviews lined up with content creators. We'll announce that officially shortly. But without further ado, like we said, you hope you have a wonderful Halloween.
And remember, the force of others will be with you.
Always. The Force of Others, a Star Wars podcast.